Welcome to the Travis Masterbone podcast. I am your host, Travis Masterbone, talking some shit to impact your life. This is episode 21, titled Ramit Sethi and How to Be Rich. Quote, "There's a difference between being poor and being broke. Broke is temporary. Poor is eternal." End quote. Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, stole that from my previous episode, but we are right now on the finance track, and I stumbled across, late to the game, I might add, Ramit Sethi, author of the book, I Will Teach You How to Be Rich, and it's a very, very popular book, and you also might know him as the host of his show, How to Be Rich, on Netflix, which I also recently stumbled upon. Again, late to the show. I think this guy put out the book in the early 2000s. A lot of people were like, oh, you're late to the game. I've been reading this guy. I love this guy, yada, yada. So I decided to dive in. And my quick thoughts overall, I did watch the Netflix show. It is a little boring and corny for me, but it is truly incredible if these contestants or people who are on the show that he is consulting, if they are real people, it is entertaining to see how financially illiterate and irresponsible they are. And, you know, you think this is all a setup, like there's no way these people could potentially be this bad with finances. But when I really take a step back and I look at myself in my early to mid 20s, I was very close to this, this same exact thought processes and patterns that these people were doing. And, at the end of the day, Ramit Sethi, he brings up a ton of interesting points in his book and in the show. In the show, he just overall analyzes each of their financial situations, no different than the way that I presented it in my Warren Buffett episodes, where before you buy a business, take a look at their income statement, take a look at their balance sheet, and then just go from there, analyzing what they're making and what they're spending on. Cut back on what you're spending on, which is bullcrap. Try to increase your income as much as possible, and then, get rid of that debt, the bad debt. And then leveraging investments is also brought up within his book. But overall, the Netflix show, if you want to go check it out, go for it. I believe it is just Teach You How to Be Rich or How to Be Rich on Netflix. Interesting series. There's a lot of different people on there with different issues. And, it's a little corny and cheesy, but if you want to sit through it, you could learn some stuff. But overall, today, I just wanted to highlight 5 takeaways I stumbled upon. The Swedish investor, this guy, I'm basically going to summarize his video on how he pulls away some of these main, important points that Sethi points out in this book that I think really does hit home with me and hopefully hits home with you too. And I will expand upon each of these 5 focal points and give little tidbits on my own personal experience and my own advice on how to be rich. And the most important thing, which hopefully lands in everyone's brain when we say the word rich, what exactly is rich? How do we define rich? Are we talking the top 1%? No, not exactly. We have to come up with our own definition of rich, and having this definition and having some type of standard for ourselves on what rich is to us will give us a much better idea of how we can realistically obtain such standards and such definition and how to practically get there in our lives. And the things I look at is, where do I want to live? How big of a family do I want? How much do I make now? And where do I see myself with money in the future? On money that I'm earning off of my labor versus residual income. How big of a house on where I live, right? And investments. And then a huge one I think everyone could get on board with is travel. Being able to travel without stressing about opportunity costs. How much money are we spending versus how much we're not making because we're not working? So there's a lot of different things here and there. And then also, of course, pleasures, consumer items, products, clothes, cars, all that fun stuff. What exactly do you want? And when you get there, in my opinion, and in Mr. Sethi's, is the definition of rich. So first and foremost is to clarify these wants. But then you have to take some realistic action. and be conscious about your pockets when you're trying to achieve such things. You got to become a very conscious spender who prioritizes on achieving this goal to the best of your ability on a day-to-day basis. And I agree with Sethi very much on this, and we're not against spending on, what you want to spend, but it is important to, if you do decide to spend on such products like a car or travel or consumer products, you got to do it wisely. Everything is about trade-offs. Trade-offs is a huge, huge thing, and being responsible about it. Where we align as well is being very anti-Mr. Joneses, like keeping up with the Joneses, and this more aligns with the Warren Buffett philosophy of living below your means and definitely not spending more than you make. And we'll get more into that in a second. But when we start thinking about rich, for me, I walk around my neighborhoods all the time here in Phoenix, around Camelback Mountain and the Arcadia area. Everybody knows these areas, multi-million-dollar homes. And I always go through there and I think to myself, every home has a story. We don't know how each home came about and what is the story behind it. We don't know if that house was built from the ground up. It once was a shack, which one of my clients bought in Paradise Valley on the mountain. They started off with a shack for $200,000 and just over the years put it together, put millions into it. And now it's worth 4.5 with amazing views, and it's just an incredible home. But that's starting from the ground up. There's a story. You don't know if you come across a mansion and someone is up to debt in their eyeballs, much like one of the contestants on How to Be Rich Netflix show with Sethi. How one woman was spending just a tremendous amount of money on just renting a home just because she wanted to be in a specific neighborhood. So you don't know whether they own it, whether they rent it, if they're in debt up to their eyeballs in either situation. You don't know if it was inherited. You don't know if Hulk Hogan lives there. And so I look at it as like it's not walking by these mansions and thinking that they're unachievable, but more so of thinking, okay, everything has a story. I can make my story. It's not a matter of I can't afford that. It's a matter of how can I afford that? Okay, and how are we viewing a millionaire? How are we viewing rich? Someone who inherits $10 million, but somehow, some way now is worth $5 million versus someone who came from nothing, but now they have a valuation of $4 million in net worth. I think the latter, is much more important, and I hope you agree, but they're both still millionaires, so we have to really think about this and really put into perspective our mentality. And even if you're broke right now or in debt and don't have a net worth, it's okay. These 5 things that were taken away in this book are your first steps to getting somewhere. And I would expand upon that. Are you broke or are you thinking poorly? Are you just stuck in a single source 9 to 5 without trying to branch out into other sources of income and trying to plot and scheme on how to get somehow, some way residual income and investing and saving and being conscious with your money? Right? This is it. This is where we need to shift our thinking. And I think these 5 takeaways in this entire book, highly recommend it, can really help you take that path towards it. It's helped me tremendously, even though this book didn't exactly change my life or whatever, but it definitely repeats a lot of the same foundational principles and fundamentals that it takes on getting there down the road. This isn't the lottery. Okay, there's no immediate gratification. It takes work, it takes time, and that's the beauty of it all. So that was the first principle, is you just defining rich and really changing your mentality. Okay. Number 2, beware of the minutia. Definition of minutia: the small, precise, or trivial details of something, the often not important details. And so Sethi believes to get rich, you need to start early. Of course, life is minute and limited, finite, whatever. We need to start early. Maybe we should have started 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. It don't matter. The best time to start is now. If you haven't, start now. Just do something. And he uses the 85% solution rule, where he would rather get 85% of it right than nothing at all. Don't look for minute details or excuses to not do something. You got to get there. You got to start somewhere if you haven't, and just be humble and honest with yourself. Remember, your definition of rich, let's say it's millions of dollars. Well, you better get started on managing effectively your hundreds of dollars or your thousands of dollars, hopefully, right now. Set up a high interest savings account. No fees or no restrictions on withdrawals with this account. That should be step one. That could literally happen right this second. Oh, but how do I know this is the highest interest savings account? Fuck that. Just do it. Set up an IRA if you're an entrepreneur or you're not working under a corporation. Set it up right now. Vanguard. Quote, how do I know this IRA will give me the best returns? End quote. You don't know, but just do it. Better than nothing. Pay off your debt right now. Oh, well, I don't really need to pay it all off right now. I could do it later, or I just can't. You have to figure it out. That's your best investment, to pay off debt. More is lost from indecisions than mediocre decisions. And so there is this great analogy. I like to rap, if you didn't know by now, but it would be foolish of me not to accept some local gigs or festivals that would allow me to perform for them, all because in my mind, I want to perform at Madison Square Garden. Okay, it's not practical. I need the practice, and I'm not naive enough to think that I could just skip all the hard work and get to Madison Square Garden right now. So again, make those moves and those actions now. Get rid of the minutia and then manage your thousands consciously and responsibly. Practice, and one day you will translate that into your millions. And it goes back to that redistribution of wealth, where they are always advocating to taking money from the rich and giving to the poor. Okay. The problem is, and the theory that I have that a lot of people do, is once you take millions from those who have already made it and earned it, and you drop it into the pockets of low-income people who have not earned it or are not familiar with it, I'm willing to bet that the wealthy folks are somehow, some way going to get that money back in their pockets, and the low-incomers, they're just going to blow it because they don't know how to utilize it and grow it and maintain it. And, you know, this is the same thing with famous athletes, celebrities, actors, you name it. Mike Tyson made millions and millions of dollars boxing, but had plenty of financial woes, squandered plenty of dollars due to lack of conscious spending. Okay, anyone could be a victim of this. Human nature. So moving forward, point number 3, swap your attention from micro to macro. And we've heard this all over the place, like not saving on the $5 lattes, or going out and getting coupons, or moving over to another bank because you're going to get like 0.1% more interest on this. That's going to get you rich. But these are very small micro decisions. And I believe this third point is one of the most important points of the 5 in regards to actionable things to conquer that can get you on your road to being rich, whatever that definition may be. And he calls it the 12 big wins. And these are the macro focal points. And I'm just going to list them off right now. Write them down, pause, whatever you got to do. 12 big wins. Number 1, automating your money system. We'll get into that later. 2, keeping a great credit score. I cannot preach this enough. It has helped me tremendously on having a high credit score with all my personal endeavors. Number 3, utilizing credit cards wisely. This too is very applicable in my life. Use them wisely, don't run from them, and be fucking responsible. Number 4, contribute towards a 401k, especially all the way up to employment where your employer matches you. That's basically free money. If you don't have a 401k or you don't work for somebody, open up that damn IRA. Number 5, pay off your credit cards or any other debt as quick as possible. That'll be your greatest contribution, depending on the interest rates that you owe. It just adds towards your net worth. Number 6, cancel subscriptions. Go through your statements, check and see what is going on. You will never know what you're getting charged if you're not checking out your statements. And you could find weird subscriptions that you signed up for years ago that are still just gradually taking marbles off of the pyramid. Go check that out and make sure that you got subscriptions canceled that you are not using. Number 7, cutting costs in problem areas. Again, this is all looking at your income statement and your balance sheet. This is what Ramit Sethi does in his show tenfold with every single person that he consults, is cutting costs in problem areas and addressing debt, of course. If you work for someone, number 8, negotiating a raise. Number 9, freelance work or finding other sources of income, right? To the best of your ability, figure it out. If you work a 9 to 5 during the week, what little things can you do on the weekend, and what little things can you do after work for a year or two that could set you up for some residual income down the road, so you're not just on the line with just your 9 to 5. 10, buying a house you can afford. 11, buying a car you can afford. Do not keep up with the Joneses in this, all right? Especially if you have to rent in the beginning, that's fine. Sometimes that is a great financial decision to temporarily hold on buying a home until you're ready for it. And the 12th one, allocation of capital towards investments. We'll get into that a little bit at the end of this, but I also wanted to expand upon that specifically in other episodes when we talk about index funds, mutual funds, target date funds, and the stocks and bonds and all that good stuff. Okay. So these 12 big wins, if you accomplish the majority of these big wins, I believe he says if you get about 5 of these, you don't really need to give a shit about those micros, those coupons, your $5 lattes. They won't be such of a big issue. Okay. Very important stuff there, I would say. And number 4, which I mentioned as one of those big wins, is automating your money system. We must set up an automatic system that will save us from our worst selves. Okay? And this allows us to stick to our long-term money plan strategy of getting rich. Automate it and do some work right now to reap a lot of benefits years down the line when you do this. It's such an easy trade-off, but many don't do it. Okay? And so hopefully by now you have a checking account. Hopefully you have a savings account. Okay? These are easy to set up and get going, and they are the most liquid. In regards to credit cards, again, don't run from them. Let's utilize them. Be disciplined. I have a date set in my calendar for every month when it's due, and I am disciplined enough to pay it off if I have to, or I will use it instead of my debit card. Even if I don't have a balance on it, I'll use the credit card and then pay the whole thing off in full. I don't even have to use my debit ever. And it's also safer that way. So no one hacks my my debit account. They can just take a look at my credit card, safer plan there for hackers. But, your credit card is basically a short-term loan. Take advantage of it. Pay it off and you reap cash rewards, gas, groceries, air miles, all that good stuff. Take advantage of it. Use the card. Don't let it use you. And over time, you will improve your credit. Okay, so there's many things you can do with that. I got like 4 or 5 credit cards, and I'm increasing the balance on all of those. And, we leverage that in regards to other stuff down the road with loans and credit card or my credit score. And so don't run from it. Don't be scared of it, but you got to be disciplined or it could take advantage of you. Retirement account. Set that bad boy up and automate it. Automate it, okay? Try to automate as much as you can in putting money in your savings account, putting money in your retirement account. That's a 401k, Roth, IRA, whatever you got. Speak to an advisor about specifically which retirement account you want. I am not an advisor whatsoever. I am regurgitating everything here, and I'm just telling you what I do as well. But if you automate this, this will compound over time tenfold. Retirement account, savings account, your credit cards, automate it. And lastly, your investment account. Get one from a broker. Again, go find your broker. Go talk with an advisor. You got E-Trade, Fidelity, Charles Schwab, Vanguard, etc. All of those bad boys. Again, automate this as well. Sethi's has a very specific conscious spending plan savings allocation where he gives you approximate percentages on where to put all of your money, right? A certain amount of income per month. He has percentages that you should allocate towards these accounts, towards these buckets. And again, preaching for this 4th focal point, automate. So he believes your fixed costs, they should have about 50 to 60% attention from your take-home pay. Automate your bills and your direction of income to specific banks, investment accounts, savings accounts, okay? But the fixed costs need to contribute to about 50 to 60% of your take-home pay. Investments should be about 10%. Never go below. Automate your savings account. 5%. Never go below. Automate. Pay yourself first. But then he also has a bucket of guilt-free spending. So I like that he gives a little wiggle room for you to, do some guilt-free spending. But he has a 20 to 25% allocation. Don't go above that. So if you capitalize on those 12 macros that I listed on the point before, we can raise these percentages in the investments and savings bucket. And it's just going to compound even further over time. And it's just going to make you more wealthy as you get older. Investments can grow from 10 to 15, 20%. Savings can go from 5 to 10, 15%. But it's all about how you capitalize on that big 12, increase your income, pay down the debt. And automating all of this really does help you out. Lastly, the fifth is the pyramid of investing options. I'm going to briefly go over it and just wrap up the episode. I can't believe I have been jibber-jabbing for about 21 minutes, but this is probably the most specific when it comes to your investment options and your buckets for saving and for investments and retirement. And so he has a pyramid, and the 3 ways that he suggests that you should allocate your savings and investment accounts is the bottom of the pyramid is picking your own stocks and bonds, which is the most difficult. Beating the market is, I think, difficult is an understatement, almost impossible. Even if you hire a broker, being careful with that, the fees, the time, and what you're purchasing. There's so many different sectors, and learning about when to buy stocks, when to buy bonds, when to sell, and how to grow it over time. That's going to be the most attention that you're going to have to spend towards. So he's not the biggest advocate for it, but that is on the pyramid. He relies more on the middle and the top of the pyramid. The middle is picking your own index funds and mutual funds. And then the top is the simplest of the processes, where he invests or suggests to invest in target date funds. And target date funds are just basically diversification and asset allocation funds that are basically set for you. And it's as simple as picking a date on when you want to retire, and then shovel your money in automatically, and then let the wheels turn and see how the markets do, without necessarily beating the market, but sometimes betting with the market, such as index funds, etc. And so I would like to get a little bit more detail about all of those. Like, what is a mutual fund? What is an index fund? Go back in and review what stocks and bonds are, and how this process can be extrapolated, not just through Mr. Sethi and his philosophy, but other great advisors, mentors, and legends in the financial world that I've followed as well. So expanding upon this one is a big, big passion of mine. And moving forward, hopefully these 5 focal points really, really did hit home. Again, quick review. Number 1 is defining rich for yourself. And then 2 is getting started today and just absolutely getting rid of the minutia. Number 3 is focusing on those big macro wins, those 12 big wins that I listed off. Very important. Go back, listen, write them down, and tackle those. And then 4, setting up an automated system. Out of sight, out of mind. If you don't see the money and it goes into these accounts, you're more likely not to spend it. And that's huge. And then number 5 is the specific investments, which I will create another episode extrapolating in much more detail, because I love this shit. And hopefully you love it too. Hopefully this gives you some type of motivation or pathway to start walking down and taking proper steps towards. Or if you already have done some of this stuff, maybe you can go a little bit deeper on number 5 and learn some more clever ways to invest in compound interest and grow your wealth. At the end of the day, it's not a zero-sum game. There's enough pie for everybody, and that's the takeaway from it. Check out his series on Netflix, How to Be Rich. Definitely get his book, I Will Teach You How to Be Rich, Ramit Sethi. And again, like, share, subscribe, all that shit. And thank you for tuning in to the Travis Masterbone podcast. And I look forward to you listening next time. Farewell.